Like that sign, kid. Hello, Drexel. My name is Joe Biden, and I work for Hillary Clinton. Folks, it's good to be back in Philadelphia with so many friends. You know, Jiva, you said that I got elected next door in Delaware, but I wouldn't have gotten elected, and I mean this sincerely, without an awful lot of help from Philadelphia, all the folks who came down and worked for me. And so my wife's a Philly girl. You are... I'm getting so damn angry. She's getting so excited about Wentz, I can't stand it. You know what I mean? I tell you what, you Philly fans are the most informed fans in the world, but God, you're tough, man. I tell you what, you're tough. Hey, look, I got to see Katie. I've been campaigning around the state with Katie. She is going to be your next United States Senator. And Dwight Evans, he's going to be your next Congressman in the 2nd District. And I want to tell you, if I got to be in a foxhole, I want to be in it with Dwight, I tell you. And members of the City Council, State Legislature, I want to thank Jiva for the introduction, and more importantly, as the author of the Violence Against Women Act and I've spent the bulk of my life working on these issues. It's one thing for me to sit in Washington and write this legislation as a senator and implement it as a vice president, but it's another thing to be in that rape crisis shelter. It's another thing to see the look on that young woman's face who's just been abused. It's another thing to stand there and hold her hand and knowing that God know, what do I do now? And so to Jiva and all the Jivas of Philadelphia and the nation, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, folks, you saw that debate last night, didn't you? I tell you what, if his choice isn't clear, I don't know. Oh, my Lord. Look, on a very serious note, and I mean, I'm being sincere. You know, Donald Trump's is painfully uninformed. No, this isn't for cheering. I want to make an important point. And his policies are not very helpful for the country. But what bothers me about this race, and I know I'm sort of a one-man broken record on this, but what bothers me about this race is how palpable his cynicism is about the American people. You know, he acknowledged that he didn't pay taxes because he said because he's smart. Makes him smart. Tell that to the janitor in here who's paying taxes. Tell him my dad, who, when he was alive, busted his neck working 60 hours a week, paid all his taxes. Tell that your mothers and fathers who are breaking their neck to send you here, who are paying their taxes. No, I really mean it. It angers me. It angers me. He acknowledged that when the housing crisis collapsed, when the housing market collapsed, and maybe a lot of your parents, if they didn't lose their home, they lost the equity in their home. You know what that equity was for? That equity was for their retirement. Their equity was able to get your older sister or brother to school because they could borrow against it. That equity was their insurance. That equity was what gave them peace of mind when they got in bed. And this is a guy who said, and wants to be president, that it was good business for him to see the housing market fail. What in the hell is he talking about? No. Really, look, I've been there for 8 presidents, Democrat and Republican. I've disagreed and I've agreed. But every president I have served with, including the Republicans, has had a moral center about what it was to be an American, about what we're supposed to do, about what basic fundamental rights are. This guy, but I mean it, think about it. Can you imagine Ronald Reagan, the most conservative president we've had in a long time, can you imagine him saying, it's good business to take advantage of people's misery, rooting for that misery. I really mean this. I am not joking. I'm not kidding. What does it say about this man? And he wants to be President of the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, he does not have the basic fundamental sensibilities and values that almost every American politician, left, right, and center, I know have. They disagree on how to make things better for people, but they don't take pleasure from you're fired. They don't take pleasure from knowing that they will benefit. That's what Wall Street did. That's what Wall Street, the greatest allocator of capital in the history of the world, went awry because it decided that they could take advantage, betting against the American people. Folks, you know, it's not just those people who lost their homes. It's the business, Wall Street business that brought this all down, that put us in the place we are, that put us in the worst recession, short of a depression, in the history of the United States of America, and fundamentally impacted the entire world, fundamentally impacted the economy of the entire world. It's the reason we needed to change the rules on Wall Street. Business, the vast majority of businessmen and women are decent. The vast majority of these folks, whether they're doctors or lawyers making a good salary but not in the top 1%, they're paying their taxes. They're going out and they're trying to make things better because they know it's about you guys. To make a profit's a good thing. But usually these guys go out there and the women go out there and they make products, they provide services. That's what I call business. That's what most of the good business people I know think of as good business. But when you're sitting on top of Trump Tower in a semi-golden palace, not a joke, what do you care about the people that I grew up with in Claymont on the Pennsylvania border, or in South Philly, or in the West Side? What do you think? Do you think they think that you should brag about profiting off their misery? I mean, I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. People like my mom and dad who busted their necks their whole life, worked and worked and worked to save so they could retire because they didn't want to be. How many times your parents tell you this? I never want to be a burden on my kids. I know I'm called middle-class Joe, and in Washington, that's not meant as a compliment. It means I'm not sophisticated. But let me tell you who built this damn country. The middle class built this country. I'm not joking. That's historical fact. That's why we're the most powerful nation in the world, because we have a middle class. It's not merely a matter of fairness. It's the reason why we have social stability, political stability, because there's always that notion that used to exist. If I work like hell, if I contribute to the profitability of the outfit I work with, I get to share in the benefits. That was a basic bargain Democrats and Republicans adhered to, but not this guy Trump. If you have the lawyers he has, if you're able to game the system like he does, he brags about gaming the system and bankruptcy, leaving hard-working people holding the bag. How many people has he stiffed? He didn't say, I didn't stiff anybody. He said, maybe they didn't do what I wanted. 5 times bankruptcy. Your mom and dad declare bankruptcy. Try to then get a loan in the next 5, 10, 15 years. Try to get the money to get you to help you get to college. That's the rigged system. He is part of the rigged system. This is the same guy now comes along and says, I got a tax plan. Not a joke. Think about this, because this really is going to affect your lives. Think about this. What did he say? I'm paraphrasing from last night. He said, the money should go to the wealthy people because they do good things. Folks, the greatest threat to economic growth in the world, not Joe Biden, progressive Joe Biden, liberal Joe Biden, whatever the hell you want to call me, not Joe Biden, but the IMF, the World Bank, Standard & Poor's. The greatest threat to economic growth is the concentration of wealth in the hands of just a few. And what's he proposing? Look at the tax proposal. As my wife, who's a professor, says, Google it. Don't take my word for it. No, I really mean it. My God. The tax plan is going to cut trillions of dollars. The overwhelming benefit to the super wealthy. It's going to do one of 2 things. It's going to, over 10 years, put us in debt around $9 trillion more, or we're going to have to cut every program out there counting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid by 40%. Come on, man. Look, guys, I know, maybe not in this room, but I know a lot of students on campus are frustrated. And I know they are not overjoyed about the choices. I know they think that Hillary didn't do A, B, C, or D. I know her well. But my Lord, what are we going to do? Here's the deal, guys. You know, I spent a lot of time on college campuses. And I ran as a 29-year-old kid. By the way, your generation is the most engaged. No, not a joke. I don't need a cheer in a second. Your generation is the most engaged. Your generation is the most tolerant. Your generation is the most volunteering generation in American history. But you're understandably disengaged in politics. Not you in the room, but a lot of your fellow students. And you say it's because, with good reason, the dysfunction in Washington, the way campaigns are funded, all these things which are real. Well, I was a student like you in the middle of the Vietnam War, the beginning of the end of the civil rights movement. It wasn't finished yet. The beginning of the women's movement, the environmental movement. Families split up. They were so divided. We got engaged. You've got to get your colleagues engaged. Look, we know the answer. We know the answer. We have finally got back to the place where we're out of the ditch, the car is up, it has new wheels on it, new tires, the engine's working. We're going about 40 miles an hour. The automobile is able to go 80 miles an hour. And now it's time to clear the debris out of the way and move. Now's the time to invest in education in a big way. Do you realize, I know you guys know it, 6 out of 10 jobs right now require something more than a high school degree. You know, we're in a situation where that, and for example, we talk about free community college. And people say, my God, there go those Democrats again. It's talking about spending big money. Well, let me tell you something. When Ronald Reagan was president, there were a total of about $700 billion in tax expenditures, called tax loopholes, okay, per year. Tax loopholes theoretically make sense for one of three purposes. They either encourage a social good the community thinks should occur, two, they increase productivity in the country, or three, they reward people who take chances to grow the economy. Today, there are $1,300,000,000,000 of loopholes per year. Find me an economics professor, the most conservative one on campus or next door at Penn or wherever you want to look, that will tell you there's any justification more than $800 billion of those. But here's the deal. Hillary pays for every single thing she talks about. For example, community college. We know that if we go out and we provide for free community college, cutting your debt for college in half, because to get that, it has to be a community college that all the credits are transferable to a state for university, and they have to show that there is a placement program. If they can't do that, you can't get the loan to go to that college, the grant. But it costs $6 billion a year to put another 3 million folks in college, to pay for 9 million college students, community college students, for free. That's a lot of money, man. $6 billion a year. But we know if we do it, we'll increase productivity by 0.2%. Over a decade, that's trillions of dollars. So how do you pay for it? Well, there's a thing out there as a loophole called stepped-up basis. Stepped-up basis, I hope you know what it is. I didn't know until I got to be a senator. Stepped-up basis means if you go out and Dad buys $1 million worth of stock, it increases in value over a couple of years to $2 million, and he wants to sell it, or Mom wants to sell it, what happens? They pay capital gain, less than their tax rate, on the $1 million profit. But if on the way to sell it, God forbid, Dad drops dead and you inherit it, you pay nothing. It's called stepped-up basis. Now, it affects 3 to 4/10 of 1% of the American public. They're already very wealthy, and they're good people. The wealthy are just as patriotic as the poor. But, you know what? You know how much that costs the Treasury every year? $16 billion a year. If I eliminate that one loophole that has no productive benefit, none, going to people who are good people but don't need it, what that will do is pay for all free community college for every student out there, and we can reduce the deficit by another $11 billion. Folks, we're talking about productivity. And the way we do it is get guys like Donald Trump to pay their taxes. No, I really mean it. Just pay their taxes. He says he's taken advantage of the laws that it is. How do those rules get written? What did he say when he was in the primaries? He said, I know how this works. I contributed to all these guys. I contributed to affect policy. You think he contributed to affect policy to make sure we have more funding for the disabled? Do you think he contributed to make sure that our education system is better? Guys, look, I apologize. I just am really frustrated with him. I could go on for a long time, but look, I spend half my time flying around the world, and I've now traveled over 1,200,000 miles as vice president. I'm supposedly fairly knowledgeable about foreign policy, and when I speak, everybody knows I speak for the president. There's no power in the vice presidency. It's all reflective. But I have the president's confidence, and when they go to meet a world leader, they never have to wonder whether they're talking to the president or not. What I say goes because I know that's his position, and they know it. Let me tell you what I get. I was down in Australia. All they wanted to talk about Australia was Trump it can't happen, can it? China will eat our lunch if they do this. I get a call. Two of my friends, good acquaintances, the president of Latvia and Lithuania, desperately need me to come to the Baltic states to meet with the three presidents, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, to assure them that Donald Trump doesn't represent America when he says that he would not honor Article 5, which means attack on one is an attack on all, in the NATO treaty, unless they met certain other requirements beyond being a member of NATO. Think about that. Think of the damage he's already doing to America's standing in the world. I don't know if he thinks it's a game, the way he talks about Putin. I know Putin pretty well. I spent hours and hours alone with him, negotiating. This is a hard-nosed, smart KGB agent who has one goal, which is totally anathema to the goal of every president of the United States since World War II. Ours has been a Europe whole and free and secure. Everything he's doing, whether it's in Ukraine, and I'm glad Donald Trump found out that Crimea was part of Ukraine. By the way, I hear he's on the verge of acknowledging gravity. But so folks, look, he doesn't represent America. He does not represent our basic fundamental values, Democrats and Republicans, the core sense of who we are as a nation. Look, he knows nothing about foreign policy and national security. But look, you guys are in a position to be the beneficiaries of all the hard work, and we made mistakes, but all the hard work of the last 8 years. This idea of everybody's leaving, you guys are going to hear more and been hearing more about insourcing of jobs than outsourcing. More people are coming home than leaving. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs in America. A lot more to go. A lot more to go. But if we invest in the things that made America great in the first place, you all know as students, whether you're a mechanical engineer, whether you're a biochemist, whether you're a history major, whatever you do, you're going to need continuing education your whole life because the world is changing so rapidly. Digitalization is so profoundly going to change your lives that you're not going to be able to take the 4 years you have and use it anything other than a basis for continuing to learn. This guy doesn't think we should invest in education and job training. He doesn't think we should move our significant resources and invest in intellectual capacity, science, and medical research and development. So it's time we address what the business leaders I talk about is a change in the entire corporate culture. I come from the state of corporations. I had 5 of the Fortune 25 CEOs asked to come meet with me at my home. They want me to help them change the corporate culture from short-termism to long-termism. Instead of what the next quarter profit is going to be, what corporation they're going to build over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. 448 companies were in the 444 companies were in the Fortune 500, same ones in the Fortune 500 for the last 10 years. Well, 2003 to 2012 to be precise, not the last 10 years. They made $2.7 trillion. That's a really good thing. You know how it was spent? 54% was spent buying back their own stock. 37% was built in paid in dividends. 7% for expansion, research, development, salaries. 9%. Folks, we can't afford to not to clear the rest of this sort of garbage out of the way. Look, let me conclude by saying what's at stake for your generation is a great deal. I promise you it will be turned back. You all are, as I said, the most generous generation in the history of this country. You all have reached a conclusion on basic rights for women, that women should choose, they control their own bodies. Donald Trump hasn't. He doesn't agree. You all are in a position where you understand it's who you love is should determine who you can marry. That LGBT rights are basic fundamental human rights. Donald Trump doesn't agree. You all are the ones who believe that college should be affordable to anyone who qualifies to get in. How can Donald Trump borrow his corporations at barely at 1/10%, and you pay the highest interest rate possible that could be charged? No businessman pays the interest rates you pay to borrow money to go to college. How does that make sense for the growth of the country? He not only doesn't support universities, he generates one to rip students off. No, I'm not making this. If you hadn't been around if you just been in amnesia, been in a coma for the last 6 months, and you heard me say this, you say, this guy is out of his mind. He's making this up. I mean, really think about it. You would really think, I'm making this up. But this is real. Look, last night you got a good look at both the candidates. You saw them both. Hillary demonstrated she's a leader, she has courage, she cares about the circumstances of the American people, not just the super wealthy. She thinks everybody should pay their fair share. We simply can't elect a man who belittles our closest allies, embraces dictators like Putin, a man who seeks to sow division for his own gain and his own benefit, a man who considers bluster and confuses that with strength. We can't let this happen to America. Because here's the deal, and I'll conclude with this. The United States is better positioned to own the 21st century than any nation in the world. We have the largest, strongest economy. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the most productive workers in the world, 3 times as productive as there are in Asia. We have more entrepreneurial minds and generated absolutely entrepreneurial spirits than any nation in the world. Name me a product in any other part of the world that is known internationally, that's based on the tech side of things. Ladies and gentlemen, when given a fair shot, the American people have never, ever, 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 ever let their country down. And Hillary will always fight to provide them a fair shot. She'll build off the progress we made over the last 8 years, because now's the time we can sprint. Now's the time we can move. I was at the Wharton School back in the 70s debating a think tank, conservative think tank guy, bright guy, on how he was telling me and everyone how Japan was going to eat our lunch. They were going to own us. You don't remember, but you're studying it now. And then came along the EU, and the EU was going to devour us. 285 million people we couldn't keep up with. Raise your hand if you think the EU is our problem, other than they're not growing. And then, I recently had a debate about China. China. I want China to do well. It's in our interest they do well. But China, as they say in Claymont, Delaware, is not a patch on our genes. They're good people. They don't not only have enough energy, they don't have enough water. They're talking about $1 trillion to turn around rivers. Cadmium has polluted a significant portion of their arable land. Ladies and gentlemen, they've got a gigantic problem. We should be helping, but the idea that China is going to own the 21st century. Look, the reason why you're so well positioned, not because of Barack and Joe, it's because of 4 really important things, really 5. 1, we have the greatest research universities in the world. We have more great research universities than all the rest of the world combined, because of a really smart guy, a really underestimated president named Dwight D. Eisenhower said, instead of investing all in government research, invest at the universities. Because we have a constant replenishment of a workforce. Why? Immigration. Immigration. Ladies and gentlemen, the entirety of your life, North America will be the epicenter of energy, the entirety of your life and the life of your children. energy in this country, natural gas, costs 7 times as much in Asia and 3 times as much in China. That's why these companies are coming home. That's why they're building here. And by the way, Ford leaving. Ford is creating more jobs in America. They're using one plant moving. Folks, look, the other reason is we have a system in America where you can actually adjudicate contract differences and know it's fair. We're intellectual property. Intellectual property is protected. And we have the most productive workforce. So folks, we own the future. We own the finish line. We've had candidates before try to attempt to get elected by appealing to your fears, but they've never succeeded because we don't scare easily. Americans never bow, they never bend, they never break, they endure, they overcome, they move forward, and that's why it's my absolute conviction that this is the most optimistic time in modern history for the United States of America to move. We are second to no one. That's the history of the journey of America. And God willing, Hillary Clinton and Katie McGinney will write the next chapter of that history. So register, vote, go out and get engaged. We need you badly. Thank you.